1. We're taking a closer look at a true gem from the golden age of American automobiles, the 1958 Edsel Pacer. This stunning piece of history is currently up for sale on Craigslist, and it's sure to make any vintage car collector's heart skip a beat. First things first, let's talk about the price. At just $10,900, this Edsel Pacer is an absolute steal. You might be thinking, what's the catch? Well, there isn't one. The seller has provided some key details about the car, and from what we can tell, it's a solid investment. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. This combination ensures a smooth and thrilling ride, whether you're cruising down the highway or taking a leisurely drive through town. The odometer reads 87,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car that's over 6 decades old. This suggests that the Edsel Pacer has been well maintained throughout its life. Now, let's talk about the aesthetics. The 1958 Edsel Pacer is a true head-turner, with its distinct styling and classic two-door hardtop design. It's the kind of car that will make people stop and stare as you drive by, and you can bet that you'll be fielding questions from curious onlookers at every gas station and parking lot. The seller mentions that the title status is clean, which is always a good sign. This means that you won't have to deal with any legal headaches or ownership disputes when you make the purchase. However, it's important to keep in mind that the seller hasn't provided a detailed description of the car's overall condition. While the low mileage and clean title are promising, it's still a good idea to approach this purchase with a bit of caution. As with any classic car, there may be some hidden issues or repairs that need to be addressed. If you're serious about making an offer on this 1958 Edsel Pacer, the seller has made it clear that phone calls are the preferred method of contact. They're not interested in emails or texting, so be prepared to have a good old-fashioned phone conversation. This is actually a great opportunity to ask any questions you might have about the car's history, maintenance records, and overall condition. In the end, this 1958 Edsel Pacer is a rare find that's sure to appeal to any serious car collector or enthusiast. With its classic design, powerful engine, and affordable price tag, it's an opportunity that's hard to pass up. Just remember to do your due diligence, ask plenty of questions, and approach the purchase with a discerning eye. Who knows? You might just end up driving off into the sunset in one of the most iconic cars of the 1950s. 2. We've got a real treat for all you classic Chevy lovers out there. I'm talking about a 1967 Chevrolet Impala that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $15,000, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a pretty solid deal. First off, let's talk about the condition of this '67 Impala. The seller describes it as good, which is always a positive sign. They mention that the body is straight and the floors and trunk are solid. That's crucial for a car of this age, as rust and damage can be common issues. The fact that this Impala has a clean title is also a big plus, as it means you won't have to deal with any legal headaches down the road. Now, let's dive into the juicy details. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine, which is exactly what you want in a classic muscle car like this. The seller has also made some nice upgrades, including an aluminum radiator and electric fans to keep things running cool. The addition of disc brakes is another great feature, as it improves the car's stopping power and overall safety. One thing that really catches my eye is the custom paint job on this Impala. While the seller doesn't specify the exact color, a unique paint job can really make a classic car stand out from the crowd. It's always nice to see an owner who's put some thought and effort into making their ride look its best. The transmission on this Impala is automatic, which may be a plus or minus depending on your personal preferences. Some folks prefer the control and engagement of a manual transmission, while others appreciate the convenience of an automatic. Either way, it's good to know what you're getting into. Now, the seller does describe the car as solid and complete, but it's important to keep in mind that this is still a vehicle that's over 50 years old. While the overall condition seems promising, there may be some minor issues or areas that need attention. As with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection done by a professional before making a final decision. All in all, this 1967 Chevrolet Impala seems like a pretty sweet ride. With its straight body, solid foundation, and clean title, it's got a lot going for it. The upgraded components and custom paint job are just icing on the cake. If you're in the market for a classic Chevy that's ready to cruise, this could be the one for you. Just be sure to do your due diligence, ask plenty of questions, and maybe even take it for a test drive before signing on the dotted line. 3. We've got a real gem from the late 1970s, a 1979 Chrysler Cordoba that's sure to turn heads. This classic beauty is currently available on Craigslist for just $8,500, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a fantastic deal. First things first, let's talk about the condition of this Cordoba. The seller describes it as excellent, which is music to any car enthusiast's ears. It's always a good sign when an owner is confident enough to use that kind of language in their listing. The fact that the seller has taken the time to change all the fluids, including the transmission, differential, radiator, and engine oil, shows that they've been taking good care of this classic ride. Now, let's dive into the specifics. The odometer reads just 76,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car that's over 40 years old. This suggests that the Cordoba has been well maintained and hasn't been subjected to excessive wear and tear over the years. The clean title is another big plus, as it means you won't have to worry about any legal issues or ownership disputes when making the purchase. One thing that really catches my eye is the black paint job on this Cordoba. There's just something about a classic car in a sleek black finish that exudes style and sophistication. It's the kind of color that will make this Cordoba stand out at any car show or cruise night. Under the hood, you'll find a gas-powered engine, which is typical for a car of this era. While the seller doesn't specify the exact size or configuration of the engine, Chrysler Cordobas were known for their smooth and powerful performance back in the day. The automatic transmission is also a nice touch, as it makes this classic car more accessible and easier to drive for a wider range of enthusiasts. Now, it's important to keep in mind that even a car in excellent condition may have some minor flaws or areas that need attention. The seller doesn't mention any specific issues in their listing, but it's always a good idea to inspect a classic car thoroughly before making a purchase. Look for any signs of rust, wear, or damage that may not be immediately apparent in the photos. Overall, this 1979 Chrysler Cordoba seems like a fantastic opportunity for any car enthusiast who appreciates classic American style and performance. With its low mileage, clean title, and excellent condition, it's the kind of car that you could enjoy driving right away or even showcase at local events. The recent fluid changes and sleek black paint job are just icing on the cake. If you're interested in making this Cordoba your own, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller as soon as possible. As they mention in their listing, this car is likely to generate a lot of interest, so it may not be around for long. Be prepared to ask plenty of questions, request additional photos or videos, and maybe even schedule an in-person inspection if you're serious about making an offer. At the end of the day, this 1979 Chrysler Cordoba is a real head-turner that's sure to impress. With its classic styling, excellent condition, and attractive price point, it's a rare find in today's market. If you've been searching for a vintage ride that's ready to hit the road, this could be the one for you. 4. We've got a real treat for you. A 1949 Plymouth Special that's been cherished by the same family for over 4 decades. This vintage beauty is currently up for sale on Craigslist, and it could be yours for just $7,200. First off, let's talk about the history of this Plymouth Special. According to the seller, it's been in their family since way back in 1976. That's a long time for a car to stay with one family, and it suggests that this Plymouth has been well loved and cared for over the years. The fact that it's been stored in a garage for at least 26 years is another good sign, as it means the car has been protected from the elements and potential damage. Now let's dive into the specifics. Under the hood, you'll find a flat 6-cylinder engine, which was a common choice for cars of this era. The manual transmission adds to the vintage driving experience and gives you a real sense of connection with the car. The odometer reads just 15,442 miles, which is incredibly low for a vehicle that's over 70 years old. While it's possible that the odometer has rolled over, the low mileage is still a testament to the car's limited use and careful storage. The seller describes the overall condition of the Plymouth Special as good, which is a positive sign. However, they do note that there is some floor rust on the front driver and passenger sides. This is a common issue with older cars, and it's something that potential buyers will want to take a closer look at. Rust can be a serious problem if left unchecked, so it's important to assess the extent of the damage and factor in the cost of repairs when considering the purchase. Another issue that the seller mentions is that the car needs brakes. This is a crucial safety feature, so it's definitely something that will need to be addressed before the Plymouth can be driven regularly. The good news is that brake work is a relatively straightforward fix, and it shouldn't be too difficult to find a mechanic who specializes in vintage cars to take care of the problem. Aesthetically, this 1949 Plymouth Special is a real head-turner. The two-door coupe body style is classic and elegant, with clean lines and a timeless appeal. The blue paint color is a nice touch, and it really makes the car stand out. While the seller doesn't provide many details about the interior, it's safe to assume that a car of this age may need some updating or restoration work to bring it back to its former glory. Overall, this 1949 Plymouth Special seems like a solid choice for anyone who appreciates vintage American cars. With its low mileage, long-term family ownership, and good overall condition, it's the kind of car that could be a real gem with a little bit of TLC. The floor rust and brake issues are definitely things to keep in mind, but they shouldn't be deal breakers for someone who's willing to put in the work to get this classic back on the road. If you're interested in making this Plymouth Special your own, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and arranging a time to see the car in person. Take a close look at the rust damage, assess the condition of the brakes, and don't be afraid to ask plenty of questions about the car's history and maintenance records. With a little bit of negotiation and some elbow grease, you could be the proud owner of a genuine piece of American automotive history. 5. We've got a real treat for all you Mopar fans out there. I'm talking about a 1966 Plymouth Fury that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $12,500, and from what the seller tells us, it's got a lot of potential. First off, let's talk about the heart of this beast. Originally, this Fury came with a 318 V8 engine, which is a solid choice for a car of this era. However, the current owner has gone ahead and swapped in a big block 383 V8, which is sure to give this Fury some serious power. Paired with an automatic transmission, an Edelbrock 4-barrel carburetor, an Edelbrock intake manifold, and an aluminum radiator, this car is ready to rumble. The seller mentions that the Fury is equipped with power steering and power brakes, which is always a plus in a classic car. The addition of disc brakes on both the front and rear is another great upgrade, as it improves the car's stopping power and overall safety. It's important to note that while this vehicle runs and drives, the seller does mention that it's due for a carburetor rebuild. This is something that potential buyers will want to keep in mind when considering the purchase. Aesthetically, this Fury is sitting pretty on a set of Fort wheels with white wall tires, which give it a classic look with a modern twist. The seller also mentions that the car comes with the original hubcaps and fender skirts, which is a nice bonus for anyone who appreciates original details. Moving on to the interior, the seller describes it as fairly complete and in good shape. While it does need a new dash pad, the manual windows and factory gauge cluster are all in working order. The addition of 3 extra gauges below the middle of the dash is a cool touch, and the original steering wheel adds to the car's vintage charm. The aftermarket JVC radio is a nice modern convenience, but it's always possible to swap it out for something more period correct if desired. One thing that really catches my eye is the fact that this Fury comes with its original jack and spare tire. These kinds of details are often missing from classic cars, so it's great to see that they're included here. The clean title is also a big plus, as it means you won't have to deal with any legal headaches down the road. Now, it's important to keep in mind that even with all these great features and upgrades, a car of this age is bound to have some issues. The seller doesn't mention any major problems beyond the carburetor rebuild, but it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection done by a professional before making a final decision. All in all, this 1966 Plymouth Fury seems like a solid choice for anyone who loves classic Mopars. With its powerful engine upgrades, disc brakes, and overall good condition, it's the kind of car that could be a real head-turner at any car show or cruise night. The fact that it comes with original details like the jack, spare tire, and fender skirts is just icing on the cake. If you're interested in making this Fury your own, the seller has provided their contact information and website. Be sure to reach out to them to ask any additional questions you may have and to schedule a time to see the car in person. With a little bit of negotiation and some elbow grease, you could be the proud owner of a genuine piece of American muscle car history. 6. We've got a real blast from the past, a 1970 Oldsmobile Delta 88 that's looking for a new home. This vintage beauty is currently up for grabs on Craigslist, and the seller is asking just $5,000 for it. Now, before you start reaching for your wallet, let's dive into the details and see what this Delta 88 is all about. First off, the seller describes the overall condition of the car as good, which is a promising start. However, it's important to keep in mind that good can mean different things to different people, especially when it comes to classic cars. The odometer reading of 150,000 miles suggests that this Delta 88 has seen its fair share of road time, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Many cars from this era were built to last, and with proper maintenance, they can keep on running for years to come. Under the hood, you'll find a classic 8-cylinder engine, which is exactly what you'd expect from a full-size American car of this vintage. These engines are known for their smooth power delivery and impressive torque, so you can bet that this Delta 88 has some serious get up and go. The automatic transmission is another nice touch, as it makes the car more accessible and easier to drive for a wider range of enthusiasts. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the missing rims. The seller mentions that the car no longer has its original wheels, which is definitely something to keep in mind. Depending on your personal preferences and budget, you may want to factor in the cost of sourcing a new set of period-correct rims or going with a more modern aftermarket option. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it's something to consider. The seller also emphasizes that this Delta 88 has all the potential, which suggests that it may need some work to get it back to its former glory. This could include anything from minor cosmetic touches to more extensive mechanical repairs. As with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection done by a professional before making a final decision. This will give you a better sense of the car's overall condition and help you identify any potential issues that may need to be addressed. One big plus for this Delta 88 is the clean title status. This means that you won't have to worry about any legal headaches or ownership disputes down the road, which can be a real concern with older cars. All in all, this 1970 Oldsmobile Delta 88 seems like a solid project car for someone who appreciates classic American style and isn't afraid to get their hands dirty. With its 8-cylinder engine, automatic transmission, and overall good condition, it's got a lot of potential for someone who's willing to put in the work. The missing rims are definitely something to keep in mind, but they're not an insurmountable obstacle by any means. If you're seriously interested in making this Delta 88 your own, the seller is asking for serious inquiries only. Be prepared to ask plenty of questions, request additional photos or videos, and maybe even schedule an in-person inspection to get a better sense of the car's condition. With a little bit of negotiation and some elbow grease, you could be the proud owner of a genuine piece of American automotive history. So, what do you think, car fans? Is this 1970 Oldsmobile Delta 88 worth taking a chance on? With its classic styling, powerful engine, and $5,000 price tag, it's definitely an intriguing option for anyone who loves vintage cars. Just remember to do your due diligence and approach the purchase with a clear head and a realistic budget. 7. I just stumbled across a 1974 Plymouth Roadrunner on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this thing is a real head-turner. The seller is asking $15,000 for this classic muscle car, and from what I can see, it might just be worth every penny. Now, I know what you're thinking. But wait, didn't the Roadrunner lose some of its mojo by 1974? And sure, it's true that the muscle car era was starting to wind down by this time, thanks to rising gas prices and tighter emissions regulations. But that doesn't mean that the 74 Roadrunner was a slouch by any means. Unfortunately, the seller hasn't provided a ton of details about the car's condition or specs in the ad. They don't mention the engine size, transmission type, or any recent repairs or upgrades. That's a bit of a red flag for me, as I always like to have as much information as possible before making a big purchase like this. Without seeing the car in person, or getting a more detailed description, it's tough to say for sure what kind of shape it's in. The seller could be hiding some major issues, or they might just be a bit lazy when it comes to writing up a Craigslist ad. Either way, it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're serious about buying this Roadrunner. That being said, there's no denying the appeal of a classic Mopar like this. The Roadrunner has always been a favorite among muscle car enthusiasts, thanks to its combination of bold styling, powerful engines, and affordable pricing. Even in 1974, you could get a Roadrunner with a 400 cubic inch V8 engine that pumped out a respectable 250 horsepower. And with its distinctive beep-beep horn and cartoon graphics, the Roadrunner had a personality all its own. If this particular car is in good condition, it could be a real gem. The 74 Roadrunner is a relatively rare bird these days, and finding one that hasn't been completely thrashed or modified beyond recognition is getting harder and harder. With its classic Mopar styling and potential for serious power under the hood, this car could be a real head-turner at any car show or cruise night. Of course, the $15,000 asking price is nothing to sneeze at. That's a big chunk of change for any classic car, let alone one with a somewhat mysterious past. If you're seriously interested in this Roadrunner, I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and trying to get some more details about the car's history, condition, and any recent repairs or upgrades. If possible, try to arrange an in-person inspection so you can get a better sense of what you're dealing with. At the end of the day, buying any classic car is a bit of a gamble. You never know exactly what you're going to get, and there's always the risk of hidden problems or unexpected repairs. But if you're willing to take a chance on this 1974 Plymouth Roadrunner, it could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Just be sure to do your homework, ask plenty of questions, and trust your gut. And if all else fails, just remember. Beep beep 8. I just came across a 1976 Chrysler Newport on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this thing is an absolute time capsule. The seller is asking $8,600 for this gorgeous sedan, and based on the description, it might just be the bargain of the century. First off, can we talk about that mileage? The seller claims that this Newport has just 42,000 original miles on the odometer. That's incredibly low for a car that's over 45 years old. It's clear that someone has been taking very good care of this beauty over the years, and it shows in the car's overall condition. The seller describes the Newport as being in like-new condition, which is a bold claim for any classic car. But based on the photos and the description, I'm inclined to believe them. The green paint looks absolutely stunning, with a deep shine that you'd expect from a car that's been kept indoors and well maintained. The chrome trim and bumpers are equally impressive, with no signs of rust or pitting that you often see on cars of this age. But this Newport isn't just a pretty face. It's also loaded with features that were cutting edge back in 1976. We're talking power windows, a power seat, cruise control, and even a heater and air conditioner. That's right, you can cruise in comfort all year round in this baby. And with new tires and shocks, you can bet that the ride will be as smooth as butter. Under the hood, you'll find a beefy 8-cylinder engine that's ready to eat up the miles. These Chrysler big block engines are known for their smooth power delivery and easy maintenance, so you can enjoy all the benefits of classic car ownership without the headaches. And with rear-wheel drive and an automatic transmission, this Newport is a breeze to drive and maneuver. Now, I know what you're thinking. But wait, isn't $8,600 a lot of money for an old Chrysler? And sure, it's not exactly pocket change. But when you consider the car's incredible condition, low mileage, and long list of features, it starts to look like a pretty darn good deal. These Newports are getting harder and harder to find in this kind of shape, and the prices are only going up as more collectors start to take notice. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your homework before pulling the trigger. I'd recommend reaching out to the seller and asking for more details about the car's history, maintenance records, and any recent repairs or upgrades. If possible, try to arrange an in-person inspection so you can get a better sense of the car's overall condition and see if it lives up to the hype. But if everything checks out, I say go for it. This 1976 Chrysler Newport is a rare find indeed, and it's the kind of car that will turn heads wherever you go. Whether you're a die-hard Mopar fan or just appreciate the style and craftsmanship of classic American cars, this Newport is sure to impress. And with its low mileage and incredible condition, it's the kind of car that you can enjoy for years to come without breaking the bank. So what are you waiting for, folks? If you've got $8,600 burning a hole in your pocket and a love for classic Chryslers, this 1976 Newport might just be the car of your dreams. Give the seller a call, schedule a test drive, and get ready to fall in love. 9. We've got a real gem from the golden age of American automobiles, a 1965 Ford Thunderbird that's sure to make your heart skip a beat. This beauty is currently up for sale on Craigslist, and the seller is asking just $9,900 for it. But trust me, once you hear about this T-Bird's incredible condition and history, you'll realize that it's worth every penny. First off, let's talk about the mileage. The seller mentions that this Thunderbird has just 90,000 original miles on the odometer. For a car that's over 55 years old, that's incredibly low. It's clear that this car has been cherished and well maintained throughout its life, and it shows in every aspect of its condition. The seller describes this T-Bird as a true time capsule, and based on the details they've provided, I'm inclined to agree. The blue paint job looks absolutely stunning in the photos, with a deep, glossy shine that you'd expect from a car that's been lovingly cared for. The chrome trim and bumpers are equally impressive, with no signs of rust or damage that you often see on cars of this vintage. But this Thunderbird isn't just a pretty face. Under the hood, you'll find a beefy 390 cubic inch V8 engine that's ready to roar to life. These Ford big block engines are known for their smooth power delivery and reliability, so you can enjoy all the thrills of classic car ownership without the headaches. And with an automatic transmission, cruising in this T-Bird is a breeze. Now, I know what you might be thinking. But wait, don't classic cars usually come with a lot of hidden problems and issues? Well, I'm happy to report that this Thunderbird seems to be the exception to the rule. The seller mentions that it comes with a clean and clear title, which is always a good sign. It suggests that this car has been well documented and hasn't been in any major accidents or had any sketchy ownership history. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before pulling the trigger. I'd recommend reaching out to the seller, in this case, the grandson who's helping his grandpa sell the car, and asking for more details about the car's maintenance history, any recent repairs or upgrades, and maybe even some additional photos or videos. If possible, try to arrange an in-person inspection so you can get a better sense of the car's overall condition and see if it lives up to the hype. But if everything checks out, I say go for it. This 1965 Ford Thunderbird is the kind of car that you don't see every day, and it's the kind of car that will turn heads wherever you go. Whether you're a die-hard Ford fan or just appreciate the style and craftsmanship of classic American cars, this T-Bird is sure to impress. And with its low mileage and incredible condition, it's the kind of car that you can enjoy for years to come without breaking the bank. So what are you waiting for, folks? If you've got $9,900 burning a hole in your pocket and a love for classic Fords, this 1965 Thunderbird might just be the car of your dreams. Give the seller a call, schedule a test drive, and get ready to fall in love. 10. We've got a real treat for all you Cadillac enthusiasts out there. I'm talking about a 1962 Cadillac DeVille that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this is no ordinary classic sedan. The seller is asking $15,000 for this beauty. And once you hear about all the upgrades and modifications it's got, you'll understand why. First off, let's talk about the heart of this beast. The original engine has been swapped out for a modern LS 5.3-liter V8, which has been rebuilt and paired with a 4L60 automatic transmission. This combo is known for its reliability and power, and with a street cam installed, you can bet that this DeVille has some serious get up and go. The seller mentions that it's a turnkey setup with no issues, so you can hop in and hit the road with confidence. But the upgrades don't stop there. This DeVille has been outfitted with an AccuAir air ride suspension system, which allows you to adjust the ride height on the fly. It's a seriously cool feature that gives the car a modern, custom look while still maintaining its classic lines. And with disc brakes on all four corners, you'll have plenty of stopping power to match that LS engine's grunt. Inside, the seller has taken care to make sure that all the electrical components are in working order, including the ECU and OBD port. The floors have been lined with Dynamat sound deadening material, which helps to reduce road noise and vibration for a more comfortable ride. And speaking of comfort, the seller has even thrown in a set of new Cadillac floor mats to keep things looking fresh. The exterior of this DeVille is just as impressive as the interior. The blue paint job looks deep and glossy in the photos, and the car is sitting on a set of 17-inch rally wheels with a staggered setup and new tires. It's a classic look that never goes out of style, and it suits the DeVille's lines perfectly. The seller even mentions that they have some extra trim pieces and an air tank included in the sale, which is a nice bonus. Now, I know that some of you might be thinking, but wait, what about rust? Isn't that a common problem with old cars? Well, I'm happy to report that the seller specifically mentions that there is no rust on this DeVille's floors. That's a huge plus, as rust can be a real headache to deal with on classic cars. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before pulling the trigger. The seller describes the overall condition of the car as good, which is promising, but it's still worth taking a closer look and maybe even getting a professional inspection if you're serious about making an offer. All in all, this 1962 Cadillac DeVille seems like a seriously cool custom classic that's ready to turn heads and drop jaws wherever it goes. With its modern LS engine, air ride suspension, and clean, rust-free floors. It's the kind of car that you can enjoy driving and showing off for years to come. And at $15,000, it seems like a pretty fair price for all the work and upgrades that have gone into it. 11. We've got a real treat for all you Oldsmobile fans out there. I'm talking about a 1967 Oldsmobile Cutless 404-2 convertible that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $13,500, and while it's not in perfect condition, it's got a ton of potential for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about the history of this Cutless. According to the seller, it comes with the original owner's manual and Protecto plate, which is a really cool piece of documentation to have. It's also a California car with the original black license plates, which adds to its provenance. The car was originally painted in a stunning saffron yellow color, but it's since been repainted in a deep midnight blue. Now let's dive into the specs. This Cutless is equipped with a 400 cubic inch engine with C heads, which should provide plenty of power for cruising around town or hitting the highway. The engine is paired with a TH400 automatic transmission, which the seller says works nicely in all gears. The car also has power steering, power drum brakes, and a rear differential with 3.08 gears. Inside, the Cutless has a bench seat and column shift, as well as some nice creature comforts like power windows and a power top. The seller notes that the windows could use some lubrication, but they're all in working condition. The car also has air conditioning, although it's not currently working. The interior does show some signs of wear, with a cracked dash and instrument panel, but the seats are said to be in decent shape. Now, here's where things get a bit more complicated. The seller notes that the rear half of the body has been replaced from the doors back. They're not sure if the frame has been replaced as well, but they don't see any signs of a rear impact or weld repairs. The floors are said to be in great shape, but the trunk has a little rust. There are also some dents and dings in the body panels, as well as some rust on the driver's side fender and around the windshield. Mechanically, the car is said to drive nicely, with good steering and brakes. The seller has installed new brake lines and wheel cylinders, which is a plus. However, they do note that there's a clunk in the suspension when turning sometimes, which they believe is due to a bad ball joint. The car also needs a freeze plug replaced, but the seller says it's an easy fix. Overall, this 1967 Oldsmobile Cutless 442 convertible seems like a solid project car for someone who's willing to put in some work. It's got a strong engine and transmission, as well as some nice options like power windows and a power top. The body and interior do need some attention, but the seller has provided a ton of detailed photos to help potential buyers assess the condition. If you're interested in taking on this project, the seller has a non-op pink slip in hand, which means you'll need to do some paperwork to get it back on the road. But if you're up for the challenge, this Cutless could be a really rewarding car to own and drive. As always, I recommend doing your due diligence before making any big purchases. Ask the seller for more details about the car's history and condition, and consider getting a professional inspection if possible. But if everything checks out, this 1967 Oldsmobile Cutless 442 convertible could be a great addition to any classic car collection. 12. We've got a real blast from the past, a 1980 Ford Pinto that's up for grabs on Craigslist. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A Pinto? Isn't that the car that had all those safety issues back in the day? Well, yes, the Pinto did have a bit of a rocky reputation, but hear me out. This particular example might just be worth a closer look, especially with its affordable $5,750 price tag. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Pinto. The seller describes it as good, which is a promising start. They mention that mechanically, everything works and the car runs down the road just fine. That's definitely a plus, as you don't want to buy a classic car that needs a ton of work just to get it running. Under the hood, you'll find a 4-cylinder engine, which is pretty standard fare for a car of this era. It's paired with an automatic transmission, which makes this Pinto a breeze to drive, even if you're not used to shifting gears yourself. The seller also notes that the car has just over 100,000 miles on the odometer, although they do mention that the odometer is broken. That's something to keep in mind, as you won't have an exact record of the car's mileage. Now, let's talk about the exterior. The seller admits that the paint is faded, which is pretty common for a car that's over 40 years old. However, they also note that the panels are solid, which is a good sign. You don't want to buy a classic car that's riddled with rust or other structural issues. The brown paint color might not be everyone's cup of tea, but hey, it was the 80s. At least it's not that weird green color that was so popular back then. Moving on to the interior, the seller does mention that it needs some work. They don't go into specifics, so you'll want to follow up with them to get more details. It could be anything from torn upholstery to a cracked dashboard, but those are all things that can be fixed with a little bit of elbow grease and some new parts. Overall, this 1980 Ford Pinto seems like a decent little car for the price. It runs and drives, which is the most important thing, and the exterior and interior issues seem relatively minor. Of course, as with any used car purchase, you'll want to do your due diligence before handing over any cash. Ask the seller for more details about the car's history, any recent repairs or maintenance, and maybe even see if you can take it for a test drive. If everything checks out, this Pinto could be a fun little project car or even a daily driver if you're feeling brave. Just imagine rolling up to your local cars and coffee event in this thing. You'll definitely turn some heads. And with its affordable price tag, you won't have to break the bank to get behind the wheel. So what do you say, folks? Is this 1980 Ford Pinto the classic car you've been searching for? If so, you better act fast. At just $5,750, it's sure to attract plenty of attention from other budget-minded enthusiasts. Give the seller a call, schedule a time to check it out in person, and who knows? You might just drive off into the sunset in your very own piece of automotive history. 13. We've got a real gem from the 1980s, a 1985 Buick Lassar Limited Collector Edition that's looking for a new home. This classic sedan is currently up for sale on Craigslist, and the seller is asking just $2,000 for it. But don't let that low price fool you. This Lassar has a lot going for it. First off, let's talk about the mileage. According to the seller, this Lassar has only 92,000 miles on the odometer. That's incredibly low for a car that's almost 40 years old. It's clear that this car has been well cared for over the years, and it's got plenty of life left in it. Under the hood, you'll find a beefy 8-cylinder engine that's ready to hit the road. The seller has made some great upgrades to the car's mechanical components, including new suspension front and rear, a new timing system, a new radiator, and even a conversion to an electric fuel pump. They've also installed a new water pump and housing, which is a great sign that they've been taking good care of this car. The exterior of the Lassar is looking sharp too. The seller has installed a new set of American vintage rims and tires, which give the car a classic look with a modern twist. The brown paint color might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's in good condition and adds to the car's vintage charm. Now, the seller does admit that there are a few things that still need to be done to make this Lassar perfect. They've got a new fuel tank and rear struts that need to be installed, and the headliner inside the car needs to be replaced. There are also a few other small details inside the car that need attention, but the seller says it's not much. One really cool thing about this Lassar is that it comes with the original bill of sale from 1985. That's a rare find for a car of this age, and it adds to the car's provenance and collectability. The seller also mentions that the car was previously owned by an old lady and has been kept in a garage for the last 6 years. That's a good sign that it hasn't been exposed to the elements or driven hard. Overall, this 1985 Buick Lassar Limited Collector Edition seems like a great find for anyone who loves classic American cars. It's got low mileage, a strong engine, and some great upgrades that make it a reliable and stylish ride. The fact that it comes with the original bill of sale and has been kept in a garage is just icing on the cake. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before handing over any cash. Ask the seller for more details about the car's history and condition, and consider getting a professional inspection if you're serious about making an offer. But if everything checks out, this LessSabre could be a great project car, or even a daily driver for someone who appreciates classic style and American craftsmanship. And at just $2,000, it's a bargain compared to many other classic cars on the market. So what do you say, folks? Is this 1985 Buick LeSabre Limited Collector Edition the car of your dreams? If so, you better act fast. The seller says they've done what they can, but now they don't have the time or money to make it perfect. That means it's up to you to take this classic sedan to the next level. Give the seller a call, schedule a test drive, and get ready to cruise in style. 14. We've got a classic muscle car that's sure to get your engine revving, a 1978 Pontiac Firebird that's up for grabs on Craigslist. The seller is asking $8,000 for this beauty, but before you start reaching for your wallet, let's take a closer look at what we're dealing with. First off, the seller is pretty upfront about the fact that this Firebird needs some work. It's currently on non-op status, which means it's not legally allowed to be driven on the road until it passes a smog check and gets registered. The seller also mentions that while the car did run at one point, it currently doesn't start up. That's a bit of a red flag, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker if you're handy with a wrench. Under the hood, you'll find a V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. The seller says they had the carburetor rebuilt, which is a good sign that they've put some work into the car. However, they also mention that the Firebird needs a new ignition system, battery, and radiator to get it back up and running. Those are all relatively straightforward fixes, but they'll definitely add to the overall cost of getting this car roadworthy. The odometer shows 105,000 miles, which is pretty typical for a car of this age. It's not crazy high mileage, but it's also not exceptionally low. The seller does have a clean title for the car, which is a plus. You don't want to buy a classic car with a salvage title or other legal issues. Now here's where things get a bit tricky. The seller says they're serious about letting this Firebird go, but they're also not looking for lowball offers or trades. They want cash, and they want a fair price for the car. That's understandable, but it also means that you'll need to do your homework to make sure you're not overpaying for a project car. If you're seriously interested in this Firebird, I'd recommend doing a thorough inspection of the car in person. Look for signs of rust, damage, or other issues that could be costly to repair. Check the engine bay for leaks or other red flags, and make sure all the electrical components are in good shape. If possible, bring along a mechanic or someone who knows their way around classic cars to help you assess the condition. Assuming everything checks out, this 1978 Pontiac Firebird could be a really fun project car for the right buyer. It's got that classic muscle car look, with the long hood and short rear deck that define the Firebird style. The fact that it needs some work means you can really make it your own, whether you want to restore it to factory specs or add some modern upgrades. Of course, a project car like this isn't for everyone. It'll take time, money, and a fair bit of elbow grease to get it back on the road. But if you're up for the challenge and you've got the skills or the willingness to learn, this Firebird could be a really rewarding project. So what do you think, folks? Is this 1978 Pontiac Firebird worth taking a chance on? If you're in the Dixon, California area and you've got $8,000 burning a hole in your pocket, it might be worth a closer look. Just remember to do your due diligence, ask plenty of questions, and be prepared to put in some work to get this classic muscle car back to its former glory. 15. We've got a real treat for all you Ford fans out there. I'm talking about a 1969 Ford LTD formal sedan that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $10,000, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, let's talk about the history of this LTD. According to the seller, this car has only had 2 owners in its lifetime. The seller's mother was the original owner, and she purchased it brand new back in November of 1968. That means this car has been in the same family for over 50 years. The seller has owned it for the last 35 years, which is a testament to how much they love and appreciate this classic ride. Now let's dive into the specs. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 428 V8 engine that's paired with an FMX automatic transmission. This combo is known for its smooth power delivery and reliability, so you can cruise down the highway with confidence. The car also comes equipped with air conditioning, power steering, power disc brakes, an AM/FM radio, an electric clock, and even a power seat. Talk about luxury. But the upgrades don't stop there. The seller has gone above and beyond to make sure this LTD is in top condition. In the last 2 years, they've rebuilt the engine and transmission, replaced the complete suspension and braking assemblies, and even swapped out the rear differential and axles. They've also installed a new starter, water pump, mufflers, carpet, seatbelts, and tires. And that's just a partial list. The exterior of this LTD is just as impressive as the mechanicals. The seller describes the body as perfect, with no rust anywhere. The Brittany Blue Iridium paint is complemented by a sleek black vinyl top and interior, giving the car a classic and sophisticated look. And with front and rear sway bars, a rear panhard rod, and an extended range fuel tank, this LTD is ready for any road trip or weekend cruise. One of the coolest things about this LTD is that it comes with the original owner's manual and dealer sales brochure. These kinds of historical documents are getting harder and harder to find, and they add a lot of value and provenance to the car. Plus, they're just really neat to have as a collector. Overall, this 1969 Ford LTD formal sedan seems like an incredible find. With its powerful engine, luxurious features, and meticulous upgrades, it's the kind of car that you can enjoy driving and showing off for years to come. And with only 2 owners in its history, you know it's been well loved and cared for. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before handing over any cash. Ask the seller for more details about the car's maintenance history and any records they have of the recent upgrades. If possible, try to arrange an in-person inspection and test drive to get a feel for how the car runs and handles. But if everything checks out, I say go for it. This 1969 Ford LTD formal sedan is a rare find that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with its $10,000 price tag, it's a bargain compared to many other classic cars in this condition. So what are you waiting for, Ford fans? Grab this gorgeous piece of automotive history before someone else does. 16. We've got a real gem from the 1970s that's sure to make your heart skip a beat. I'm talking about a 1972 Ford Galaxie 500 two-door that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $7,500, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Galaxie. The seller describes it as 92% mint condition, which is pretty darn impressive for a car that's almost 50 years old. It's clear that the previous owners have taken great care of this vehicle, and it shows in every detail. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 400 engine that's ready to roar to life. The seller mentions that everything is in excellent working order except for the air conditioning. But hey, that's an easy fix. You can either convert it or recharge it, and you'll be cruising in cool comfort in no time. The odometer shows just 69,000 miles, which is incredibly low for a car of this age. That means you've got plenty of life left in this Galaxie, and you can enjoy it for years to come. The seller also notes that there's one small oil leak, but it's very minor and almost stops completely the more the car is driven. That's a common issue with older cars, and it's nothing that a little TLC can't fix. Now let's talk about the aesthetics. The green paint color is absolutely stunning, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The seller describes this Galaxie as a show car, and it's easy to see why. It's the kind of vehicle that you'll be proud to display at any classic car event or cruise night. One really cool thing about this Galaxy is that the seller is only the fourth owner. That means it's had a limited number of people behind the wheel, and each one has treasured and cared for it like it was their own. The seller is hoping that the new fifth owner will continue that tradition and give this car the love and attention it deserves. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before handing over any cash. The seller encourages serious buyers to contact them to arrange a time to view and test drive the car. That's a great opportunity to get a feel for how it runs and handles, and to ask any questions you might have about its history and maintenance. Overall, this 1972 Ford Galaxy 500 two-door seems like an incredible find. With its low mileage, excellent condition, and stunning good looks, it's the kind of car that you'll be proud to own and drive. And at just $7,500, it's a bargain compared to many other classic cars on the market. So what are you waiting for, Ford fans? If you're in the Minot, North Dakota area and you're looking for a show-stopping classic car, this Galaxy might just be the one for you. Give the seller a call or shoot them a text and get ready to fall in love with this gorgeous piece of automotive history. 17. I just stumbled across a 1968 Ford Mustang on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this pony is ready to gallop into your heart. The seller is asking $13,500 or best offer for this classic beauty, and based on the description, it might just be worth every penny. First off, let's talk about the basics. This Mustang is a C-code car, which means it's powered by a 289 cubic inch V8 engine. That's a tried and true power plant that's known for its reliability and performance. The seller mentions that the engine was rebuilt a few years ago, so you can bet it's running like a top. Paired with an automatic transmission, this Mustang is a breeze to drive and perfect for cruising down the highway or hitting up your local car show. The seller describes the overall condition of the car as good, which is a promising sign. They don't go into a ton of detail about the specifics, but they do mention that it runs and drives great and starts up every time. That's exactly what you want to hear when you're looking at a classic car like this. Now, let's talk about the aesthetics. The blue paint color looks absolutely stunning in the photos, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The seller doesn't mention anything about the interior, but based on the age and condition of the car, it's safe to assume that it might need a little bit of love. But hey, that's part of the fun of owning a classic Mustang. You get to put your own personal touch on it and make it truly yours. One really cool thing about this Mustang is that it comes with a clean title and current registration. That means you won't have to jump through any hoops or deal with any legal headaches when you go to transfer ownership. The seller mentions that the registration is good until December of this year, so you've got plenty of time to enjoy this pony before you need to worry about renewing it. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before handing over any cash. The seller's description is a bit brief, so you'll want to reach out to them and ask for more details about the car's history, maintenance records, and any recent repairs or upgrades. If possible, try to arrange an in-person inspection and test drive so you can get a feel for how the car runs and handles. But assuming everything checks out, this 1968 Ford Mustang seems like a solid choice for anyone who loves classic American muscle cars. With its powerful V8 engine, automatic transmission, and clean title, it's the kind of car that you can enjoy driving right away. And with a little bit of elbow grease and some personal touches, you can really make it your own and turn it into a true showstopper. So what do you say, Mustang fans? Is this 1968 pony worth taking a closer look at? If you've got $1,500 burning a hole in your pocket, or you're willing to make an offer, it might just be the car of your dreams. Give the seller a call, schedule a time to check it out in person, and get ready to experience the thrill of driving a classic Mustang. Trust me, there's nothing quite like it in the world. 18. We've got a real treat for all you Ford fans out there. I'm talking about a 1969 Ford Ranchero that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $9,300 or best offer. And let me tell you, it's got a lot of potential. First off, let's talk about the heart of this beast. Under the hood, you'll find a massive 390 V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. This combo is known for its smooth power delivery and impressive torque, so you can bet that this Ranchero has some serious get up and go. The seller also mentions that it's got power steering and power brakes, which is a nice touch for a vehicle of this age. Now, let's talk about the overall condition of this Ranchero. The seller describes it as good, but they do note that it's had some previous rust repair. That's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're looking for a completely original or pristine example. The odometer shows 133,000 miles, which is pretty typical for a car of this age. It's not crazy high mileage, but it's also not exceptionally low. One thing that caught my eye in the seller's description is the mention of a loose shifter lever on the steering column. They note that this can sometimes prevent the neutral safety switch from engaging, which is a bit of a red flag. It's not a huge issue, but it's definitely something that you'll want to address if you decide to pull the trigger on this Ranchero. Aesthetically, this Ranchero has a custom paint job that looks pretty sharp in the photos. The seller doesn't specify the exact color, but it appears to be a deep, rich shade that really makes the car's lines pop. Of course, as with any custom paint job, it's always a good idea to see it in person to get a true sense of the quality and finish. The seller mentions that the Ranchero has a clean title in hand, which is always a good sign. However, they do note that the registration is from 2021 and that the car is currently on planned non-operation (PNO) status. The good news is that all the fees have been paid and the seller has a DMV receipt to prove it. That means you shouldn't have any issues getting it registered and back on the road. Overall, this 1969 Ford Ranchero seems like a solid choice for someone who's looking for a classic American utility vehicle with a bit of muscle car flair. It's got a powerful engine, some nice creature comforts, and a custom paint job that's sure to turn heads. Of course, the previous rust repair and loose shifter lever are things to keep in mind, but they're not necessarily deal breakers if you're handy with a wrench or willing to put in a little work. If you're interested in making this Ranchero your own, the seller is asking for $9,300 or best offer. They're located in South San Francisco and are only accepting in-person cash transactions. They're not interested in trades or shipping the vehicle, so keep that in mind if you're not local to the area. As always, I recommend doing your due diligence before making any big purchases. Ask the seller for more details about the Ranchero's history, maintenance records, and any other relevant information. If possible, try to arrange an in-person inspection and test drive to get a better sense of the car's overall condition and performance. But if everything checks out and you're ready to take the plunge, this 1969 Ford Ranchero could be a really fun and unique addition to your garage. Just imagine cruising down the highway with that big V8 rumbling under the hood and the wind in your hair. It's the kind of experience that every classic car enthusiast dreams of. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and make an offer. This Ranchero is ready to ride. 19. Have I got a treat for you today? I just stumbled across a 1982 Chevrolet Corvette on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this thing is a real-time capsule. The seller is asking $14,000 or best offer for this classic sports car, and based on the description, it might just be worth every penny. First off, let's talk about the mileage. This Corvette has less than 42,000 original miles on the odometer. That's incredibly low for a car that's over 40 years old. It's clear that this car has been well cared for and preserved throughout its life, and it shows in every detail. Under the hood, you'll find a classic 350 cubic inch V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. This combo is known for its smooth power delivery and reliability, so you can enjoy all the thrills of driving a Corvette without any of the headaches. The seller mentions that the car runs great and doesn't smoke, which is exactly what you want to hear when you're looking at a classic sports car like this. Now let's talk about the overall condition of this Corvette. The seller describes it as an original unmolested survivor, which is music to any collector's ears. That means that this car has never been modified or altered from its original factory specs. It's a true piece of automotive history, and it's getting harder and harder to find examples like this as time goes on. The seller also mentions that they've replaced anything needed to make the car as dependable as possible over the last 2 years. That's a great sign that they've been taking good care of this Corvette and making sure it's ready for its next owner. They even include most of the original parts that were replaced, like the tires and steering wheel, as well as all the receipts for the work that was done. That kind of documentation is invaluable when you're buying a classic car. Aesthetically, the red paint job looks absolutely stunning in the photos. The seller does note that the paint shows some age, which is to be expected for a car that's over 4 decades old. But overall, it looks like a really clean and well-preserved example of an early 80s Corvette. One really cool thing about this particular car is that it's the last year for this body style. The C3 Corvette ran from 1968 to 1982, and this car represents the end of an era. It's got all the classic lines and styling cues that made the C3 such an icon, but with some of the refinements and improvements that came in the later years of production. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence before handing over any cash. The seller mentions that this Corvette is being sold as is, with no warranty, so you'll want to make sure you get a thorough inspection done by a qualified mechanic. You'll also want to ask the seller for more details about the car's history, maintenance records, and any other relevant information. But if everything checks out, this 1982 Chevrolet Corvette could be an incredible find for any collector or enthusiast. It's got low mileage, a great history, and a classic look that never goes out of style. And with a price tag of $14,000 or best offer, it's a relative bargain compared to some other classic Corvettes on the market. So what do you say, Corvette fans? Is this 1982 Survivor the car of your dreams? If so, you better act fast. Cars like this don't come around very often. Grab your old cassette tapes, fire up that 350 V8, and get ready to experience the thrill of driving a true piece of American sports car history. 20. We're taking a closer look at a classic beauty that's up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1967 Buick Skylark. This 2-door hardtop is a true survivor, and the seller has owned it for the past 5-6 years. Now, let's dive into the details. Under the hood, you'll find an excellent 300 V8 engine paired with a 2-speed automatic transmission. The seller has given this Skylark some love over the years, including a couple of tune-ups, a new vinyl roof, and a rebuilt radiator. They've also redone the plugs, points, wires, condenser coil, and even had the carburetor rebuilt. The seller is upfront about the car's condition, stating that it's not perfect, but still runs like a charm. You can hop in and go for a ride without any worries. The odometer shows 54,000 miles, which is pretty low for a car that's 57 years old. The Skylark sports a clean title and an eye-catching red paint job. However, if you're looking to give this classic a fresh coat of paint, be prepared to shell out some serious cash. Body shops have quoted the seller anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 just for an exterior paint job, and a full frame-off restoration could cost up to $30,000. The seller admits they're not Howard Hughes or even a close relative, so they've decided to pass this beauty on to someone with more money or skills to take it to the next level. Overall, this 1967 Buick Skylark is a fantastic opportunity for any classic car enthusiast Looking for a project or a weekend cruiser? With a price tag of $12,000, it's a fair deal considering the car's condition and the work that's already been put into it. If you've got the skills or the budget to give this Skylark the love it deserves, it could be the perfect addition to your garage. As always, be sure to do your due diligence before making any big purchases. But if you're ready to take on a classic American icon, this 1967 Buick Skylark is definitely worth checking out.